So that's it. The final part of our sculpting is to make some holes, or it's better to say dented parts, where the other anomalies are located. In that case, if we first add the different objects and scatter them, we can find better locations for the upcoming anomalies. Let's begin with making a fog. So press Shift S, cursor to world origin, then press Shift A in the mesh, add a cube. Here is a point. We are going to make a complex material for it. And in that case, the scale of this cube will highly affect the look of our fog. So for the time being, go to the object panel, set the scale X on 505, Y on 534, and Z on 440. These are the values that I have used in the main project. Now press F2 and rename it to fog. Then press M, move it into a new collection and call it volume. Switch the right window into shader editor. Make a new material for it and rename it to fog. Delete principal BSDF, press Shift A and search for volume scatter. Add it over here, duplicate it and move it down. To combine them together, add a mix shader. Make the connection like so, then plug the mix shader into volume on the material output. Now add a noise texture and plug color into both volume scatter. Set the scale on 10, detail on 12.6, and roughness on 0.62. With it selected, press Ctrl T. We will get to it later. On the first volume scatter, set the anisotropy on 0.117. On the second one, decrease the density to 0.004. Now to affect the colors, add a color ramp on the connection to the first volume scatter. Drag the white slider to the left and then open the color tab. Enter this hex code, CAE2FFFF. Add another slider, place it somewhere around here, and enter this hex code, C1B1A7FF. Finally, drag the black slider to the right and give it this hex code, FFF5EBFF. So these were basically for the color. Now to break up its perfect composure, plug factor on the noise texture into density of the first volume scatter. Add a color ramp on the connection, and then if we drag the black slider to the right, we can see the effect. Place it somewhere in the middle. Now on the mapping node, set the scale X on 3.05, Y on 1.15, and Z on 0.6. It is working a little bit better, but here is the secret sauce. On this color ramp, open the color tab of the black slider and set the value on 0.008. See what it does. Now this is what we are looking for, but it is working pretty weird. The reason is Blender as a default doesn't consider the volume objects. To fix that, head over to the render panel, scroll down where we have the light path. Here there is a property called volume, which is set on 0. If we increase it to 3, there you have the effect. And here is a point. In every single one of your projects that you want to add volume and fog or open VDBs, you have to at least increase this volume property by 1. So keep that in mind. Now we have a much better result. And by the way, in the main project, I tweaked these values a little bit. Total on 16, diffuse also on 16, glossy on 9, transmission on 18, volume on 3, and transparent on 32. Now let's go on with making a water plane. This will insanely help to the realism of our scene. But before that, because this fog is a bit heavy, turn off the volume collection for now. And after we have added our water plane, I will teach you something really interesting and handy. But before that, here we have a plane. I wonder what this is exactly. Oh, this is the sun suppressor. So press F2, rename it to sun suppression, and drop it into the main collection. Now press Shift A in the mesh, add a plane. Press S to scale it up. Make it as big as the ground like so. Go to top view and adjust it like so. You can press SY to scale it down on the Y axis. Now this is fine. Then press F2 and rename it to water plane and drop it into the ground collection. Let's switch into shader editor and make a new material for it, rename it to water plane. Add a mix shader and place it after the principal BSDF. Make sure it is plugged into the second shader input. Then for the first shader, add a transparent node. On the principal BSDF, set the base color on absolute black. Set the roughness on 0. The IOR of water is 1.333. Then open specular and here set the IOR level on 1. Let me move it down a little bit. Now to add some distortion, let's take advantage of our good friend, the noise texture. After that, add a bump node, plug factor into height and plug normal into normal. For the scale, since we want to make distortion, we should go for a high value, 800. It is not visible from here, but if you zoom in, you can definitely see that. On the bump node, increase distance and filter width to 1. Then decrease the strength to 0.01. Already a good result, but for the icing on the cake, add a principal volume and plug it into the volume on the material output. For the color, enter this hex code C1E4A0FF. This principal volume really adds depth. You cannot see that entirely now, but if we disable the sound suppression, if you hide it, now you can see what it does. It looks insane. I mean, just insane. Where there is more depth, you can see it is thicker, but when there is less depth, or shall I say it is shallow, you can see it is less green. It's really insane. But let's say you don't like this green color. So here is the fix. Press tab to go into edit mode, press A to make sure everything is selected, then press E to extrude it downward like so. And this will give you a different look. It may not look good right now, but if we enable the sound suppression, it will look like exactly like normal water. So it totally depends on you to what to choose. And done. Now let's get to a really demanding part of our project, which is scattering different assets that will help us get that apocalypse look that we are looking for. So here is a tip. Let's begin with the electric towers. It also comes with textures. So open the blend file and select both of them. Press Ctrl C to copy. Now return to our main project. Press Ctrl V to paste. Let's move them over here. So we should switch the transformation orientation into global. Move them back a little bit. Press M, move them into a new collection, call it Electric Towers. First of all, increase the scale of them to 1.35. Select this tower that is fine and doesn't have any problem. Go to top view and move it to somewhere around here. Press RZ90. Then enable the transform tool and rotate it a little bit on the y-axis to get this look. This seems nice. So before continue adding more objects, here we should do something really necessary. We should find a way to hide the horizon, otherwise it will look really unnatural. The best solution in our case is to make a fake hill over here, or any other side of the ground plane, here or here. And to do that, select the ground plane and isolate it. Over here, let's switch into solid view. I want to connect this part of the mesh to this part over here. So press tab to go into edit mode and make sure nothing is selected. Let's zoom in over here and press K to enable the knife tool. Now if you move your cursor, you can see it automatically snaps to the nearest vertex. So on this vertex I click, then to have an easier time, hold down the shift and the mouse scroll to adjust your view. I count down here and select this vertex. Click on it and to apply the adjustment, press enter. And as you can see, this line of vertices are already selected. So don't touch anything and go to the data panel. Here we can see the vertex group tabs. So make a new vertex group, and with these vertices selected, click on assign. So that now if we click on select, we can simply select them. Now with them selected, press Shift S and choose cursor to selected. Then press numpad 7 to go into top view. Press C to enable the selection tool. Let's scroll backward to increase the radius and select all these vertices on the left. And you don't need to be that precise. Now right click to cancel the selection tool. Press numpad 1 to go into front view. Let's zoom in a little bit. Set the pivot point on 3D cursor. Then press R. Rotate this part slightly like so, just a bit. So this is totally enough. Then press numpad 3 to go into side view. And over here, you can see it should be rotated a little bit. So press R, rotate it to adjust it. So this is fine now. Jump back into object mode and there you have made your hill. You can see the horizon is barely visible on this side, but over here it is totally visible. So you can do the same trick over here, but don't do it over here. We have another plan for it. And here's the tip. After cutting the mesh, here you can see there is a harsh edge. So the point is, in the rendered view, it is not visible at all due to our displacement maps. So don't worry about it. Now let's continue adding assets. So exit the isolation mode, select the tower, go into top view, press Alt+D and move it to somewhere around here. When you press Shift D, you make a duplicate and it means a complete new mesh, which can make your project really heavy. Alt+D makes an instance instead of a duplicate. So place it somewhere around here and give it some rotation. And it is better to set the pivot point back on individual origins. If we go into edit mode and select some of the part and make some changes, you can see this is what an instance actually does. So if you make any changes to that instance in the edit mode, it will also affect the other one. Then for the third one, we want to make some adjustments. So this time press Shift D to make a duplicate. Move it back over here, press Alt+R to clear its rotation, then press RX90. Go into edit mode, make sure nothing is selected. Pick the face selection tool, hover your mouse on this part. Press L to select the entire connected mesh. Then press numpad 1 to go into front view, enable the X-ray, hold down the Shift key and select these faces at the bottom. Now if we give it a shot, yeah, this is the right selection. Then press P to separate by selection, so that they will be separated objects. Now we can disable X-ray. Jump back into object mode, select the top part. Let's move it up a little bit and go into edit mode. Enable X-ray, the vertex selection tool, and select these vertices at the bottom. Press Shift S, cursor to selected. Jump back into object mode. Right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Now move it down and rotate it a little bit on the y-axis like so, to give it a broken look. So done. Now select the other tower, which is this one, and move it to the back over here. Let's give it some rotation and a good location for it. Something like that looks nice. Finally select the first one, press Alt+D to make an instance and move it to the back. Press Alt+R to clear rotation, then RX90. So something like that looks nice. Now if we enable the volume, see what a good and cool looking result we have. And just wait until we add the other objects. Then for the right side, we can go for electric poles. So open the electric poles blend file. Here there are 4 different electric poles. You can pick any one that you like. I just randomly picked this one, pole 2. These empties that you can see control the poles. So in the outliner, Right-click and choose Select Hierarchy, then press Ctrl+C to copy. Return to our main project, press Ctrl+V to paste. Move them to the back over here, then press M to move it into a new collection and call it Electric Poles. Now select the empty, go to Top View and move the pool to somewhere around here. If you have also picked this one, scale it up a little bit. 1.32. Yeah, that is totally fine. Then press RZ90 to rotate it like so. It is really fine, but I guess its material is too dark. So in the shader editor, add a hue saturation after the base color. I have selected the pool itself. Now to brighten up the color, set the value on 2. Yeah, much better. Or shall we go higher? 2.5? Yeah. Then select this part and do the same thing. Hue saturation, value on 2.5. Yeah, much better now. Now select all the parts, and here is a point. Since the empty is down here, it is really hard to select. So with it selected, go to the object panel, scroll down in the viewport display, enable in front. Now we can easily find it. So select all the parts of this electric pole, go to top view, press Alt+D, make an instance and move it forward. Place it somewhere around here. The rotation of it is fine. Let's again select all of them and make another instance and move it forward. Here seems to be nice. Select the empty and give it some rotation like so. See how much detail it adds into our scene. Fine. Make another instance and move it forward. Select the empty and slightly give it some random rotation. You can of course use the x-axis. It may not be that visible from here, but we will have the effect anyway. For the next one, we are going to make some changes. So this time press Shift-D to make a duplicate. Press Alt+R to clear the rotation. Then make it lie down on the ground like so. Yeah, this seems nice. We can of course select this part, press S, then Shift-Y to scale it up, so that it will have a better vision over here. Looking really good. This time only select the empty and the pool, not this part. Shift-D to move it forward. Place it somewhere around here and let's adjust it. Select the empty, press Alt+R to clear the rotation. Then move it down like so. Give it some rotation as if this one is broken. Select both of them, Alt+D to make another instance. Move it forward, place it somewhere around here. And change the rotation a little bit, or you can move it up as well. Now get back to the first one, select all the parts, press Alt+D and move it towards the end of the train. Then finally make 3 more instances and adjust them nicely in place like we did before. Give them some random rotation. Something like that looks nice. The next step is to add cables for both towers and pools, and for that we can take advantage of an internal extension of Blender.